The story of baseball in Cleveland has been largely one of failure and futility. When the film Major League came out in 1989, there was a reason that its writer and director, David S. Ward, chose the Cleveland Indians as the centerpiece for his Cinderella story. No one on the planet could imagine the team winning anything, even a division title. It could only happen in the movies. And to this day, Cleveland's last World Series title was way back in 1948, making its 76-year championship drought the longest dry spell in the game. But there's something that we all tend to overlook in our rush to feel sorry for the hard luck fans of the city that some call the mistake by the lake. Namely, that during the 1990s, Cleveland was really, really good. They had an incredible run throughout the decade. Although they were perhaps overshadowed by the tomahawk-chopping, talent-laden Atlanta Braves, who, unlike Cleveland, brought home a World Series title during that time, the Cleveland Indians of the 1990s had an incredible lineup of young power hitters like Albert Bell and Manny Ramirez, and a rotation full of future superstars like Bartolo Colon and CC Sabathia. They had speed, power, personality, and heart, and they were that franchise that just came oh so close to winning it all multiple times. However, each time they just came up short in a heartbreaking way. The dark times. They're shitty. That's how the skeptical groundskeeper in Major League referred to their team's chances, even as the team began to improve. And it's a pretty apt description for baseball in Cleveland prior to the 1990s. For a long time, the team was one of the worst franchises in all of baseball, having won their last title in 1948, and having not even appeared in the World Series since 1954. Following that World Series loss in 1954, they would go on to miss the playoffs for the majority of the next 3 decades, and they would continue to get worse and worse throughout the years. Cleveland would lose over 100 games 4 times throughout that span. But things started to turn around in the 1990s as a young group of prospects emerged in the minor leagues. 1990. 1 year after the fictional Cleveland Indians of Major League went from worst to first, the real Indians embarked on a turnaround that was just as improbable. The early part of the 1990s was still a rough time for Cleveland, and they were still finding their footing. And those young, hungry power hitters were yet to emerge from the minor league ranks. They would win 77 games in 1990 and finish 4th place in their division, as their streak of finishing lower than 2nd place would continue for another season. However, a couple of important new faces would join the roster, in the form of Sandy Alomar and Carlos Baerga. Both would come over from San Diego during their rookie seasons. They were brought to Cleveland in a trade involving former Indians outfielder Joe Carter, who is best remembered for his game-winning home run in 1993, which clinched the 2nd Blue Jays World Series victory in as many years. Albert Bell would also feature sparingly throughout that season, while Alomar would be featured as the everyday catcher for the Indians. Although massively underwhelming, the 1990 season would be the start of a huge turnaround for the franchise. 1991. But before things could get better, they had to get a little worse. The 1991 season was also another losing season for Cleveland. It was a major step back from the 1990 campaign. They recorded one of the worst records in modern baseball history by losing 105 games, and people actually projected them to have a good season that year. Despite 105 losses that season, their young players, like Alomar, Baerga, and Bell, would make huge strides in their play on the field and set a great precedent for the future. The 1991 season would also mark the Major League Baseball debut of Jim Thome, who would be featured sparingly throughout that year. Although he only appeared in 27 games, he would record nearly 1 hit per game that season, and show flashes of the type of player he would become throughout the rest of the 90s. On the mound, Charles Nagy would feature prominently, and despite posting a losing record, he would establish himself as a future arm in their starting rotation. 1992. There was a major improvement for the franchise during the 1992 season, although they would still record a losing record. However, they would end up winning 76 games that season, and they would be named the Franchise of the Year by Baseball America. They received that recognition because their farm system was loaded with some of the best and brightest young talent in the sport, and that's something that would show its head in only a few more years. Albert Bell would truly show his worth as a power hitter that season, knocking 34 home runs out of the park, and Baerga wasn't far behind him with 20 of his own. Both players recorded over 100 RBIs that season, and that lineup started to show flashes of what would make them perhaps the greatest lineup in all of Major League Baseball between 1995 and 1997. Another massive piece was introduced to Cleveland that season as Kenny Lofton became the full-time center fielder for the team. and he would immediately establish himself as a great leadoff hitter with the club. The production of Jim Thome would increase as well, although he was still a few years away from becoming one of the most feared power hitters in the league. Another couple key pieces would emerge on the pitching side as well, as Nagy would improve by winning 17 games, and Jose Mesa would make his debut. 1993. 1993 was yet another losing season for the Cleveland Indians, but this would be the last one for a very long time. Much like 1992, they posted 76 wins and finished in the bottom half of their division. But more faces began to emerge throughout the minor league system that was honored only a couple years earlier as one of the best in the game. Albert Bell would surpass his home run total from the previous year with 38, and he would record 129 RBI as well, as it would be the second consecutive season for him with over 30 runs and 100 RBI. And Kenny Lofton would have an incredible season at the plate, hitting .325 for the team. Carlos Baerga accomplished a rare feat by recording 200 hits that season, to go along with 21 home runs and 114 RBI. Unfortunately, Alomar would spend a chunk of the year injured, which really hampered Cleveland. Meanwhile, Manny Ramirez would come into the fold that season, and he showed flashes of brilliance early on. He got called up late in September and hit a pair of really important home runs. 1994. The 1994 Major League Baseball season was truly the start of something really special for the Cleveland Indians. Things really started to come together for the franchise, and they were red hot heading into the labor strike that ended the season midway through the year. This is a team that many people expected to be a World Series contender before the season was stopped, and it's really unfortunate that this solid run was cut short. 1994 would also mark the inaugural season at Jacobs Field, which is now known as Progressive Field. During that season, Dennis Martinez was picked up as a free agent, and he would become a key piece of the rotation throughout the short season. In mid-July, Albert Bell was hitting so well that the umpires confiscated his bat, accusing him of corking it. Cleveland actually tried to switch out the bat in the middle of the game, but because the replacement bat had somebody else's name on it, Bell was considered guilty. He would be suspended for 7 games due to the incident. When the season was shut down, Cleveland was nearly 20 games above 500, with 66 victories throughout their first 113 games. It was really unfortunate timing. This team was really starting to heat up and blossom, and who knows what could have happened throughout the remainder of the year. This was the season that their incredible lineup started to establish itself as one of the best in baseball. They led the league in almost every offensive category when the season came to an early end. The pitching was also finding its way. They had a combined 17 complete games throughout the season, which led Major League Baseball. This would also be the year that they drafted Jarrett Wright with a first-round pick, and he would go on to make his own name later on in the 1990s for Cleveland. After years of dealing with injury setbacks, Sandy Alomar would start to find his foot offensively, which was a huge boost for the club. By the time the season stopped in mid-August, even with the suspension, Albert Bell had nearly surpassed his home run total from the last year, and he was already over 100 runs batted in. It's also worth noting that Tony Pena and Eddie Murray both joined the team that season, adding 2 more incredible pieces to the lineup. 1995. Baseball returned in 1995 after the season-ending strike, and the Cleveland Indians returned better than ever. The 1995 season was incredible for Cleveland. It marked a return to the postseason after over 40 years away. Cleveland would win 100 games that season and win the American League Central for the first time in the team's history. Due to the last year's labor strike, the season was cut from 162 games down to 144. Because of that, Cleveland would become the first team in American League history to win over 100 games while playing less than 154. Cleveland had 6 players named to the All-Star game that season, in a year that would end with a World Series appearance against the Atlanta Braves. With all of their pieces finally in place, whether from trade or from the minor leagues, Cleveland was finally ready to roll through the back half of the 90s. This is exactly what they did in the opening round of the playoffs, as they steamrolled the Boston Red Sox in only 3 games. They would advance to the ALCS against the young, upstart Seattle Mariners, and they would finish off Seattle in 6 games, before advancing to the World Series against the aforementioned Braves. This wasn't just any normal Atlanta team. They were loaded with 3 Hall of Fame pitchers and an incredible lineup of their own. They would show Cleveland that pitching really matters in the postseason. They shut down Cleveland's incredible lineup throughout the World Series. This was Atlanta's 3rd World Series in the last 4 years, and was part of the Braves' dynasty of the 1990s. Cleveland would be dominant at home, winning 2 out of 3, but Cleveland just couldn't win in Atlanta, and they dropped the series in 6 games. 1996. The 1996 season was another solid campaign for Cleveland. They won their 2nd consecutive division title, but their postseason journey was cut short. Albert Bell and Jim Thome would provide plenty of power throughout the regular season. They both hit over 30 home runs. Bell had 48 and Thome had 38. along with Manny Ramirez adding another 33 of his own. While on the mound, Orel Hershiser, Charles Nagy, and Jack McDowell would all record double-digit winning seasons. However, unfortunately for Cleveland, it didn't translate into the postseason. They would win 99 games, but lose to the Baltimore Orioles in the ALDS in 4 games. 1997. The 1997 season was great for Cleveland, and they made it to the World Series again. They would win a 3rd consecutive AL Central Division title and win 86 games on the year. They would also host the 1997 All-Star Game, and 3 members of the team, Sandy Alomar, Jim Thome, and David Justice, were named to the American League All-Star Team. Jim Thome, Matt Williams, and David Justice would all record over 100 RBIs that season, but other players like Lofton, Bell, and Baerga were either gone from the team or had minimal impact. But Bartolo Colon would start to make his own impact with the team, and Nagy and Wright would continue to establish themselves as legit pieces in the rotation. Cleveland breezed through the ALDS in 5 games against the New York Yankees. Cleveland then defeated the Baltimore Orioles in 6 games in the ALCS to advance to their 2nd World Series in 3 years. They would face off against the Florida Marlins in the 1997 World Series. And that World Series is highly regarded as one of the best World Series of the modern era. It would end up going to 7 games, and Cleveland had plenty of opportunities to close the series, but they were just unable to do so. They would lose to a walk-off single in extra innings in Game 7, and that loss signaled the end of a great run through the back half of the 1990s. 1998. Cleveland would once again take home the AL Central Division, but their playoff journey was once again short-lived, and they just couldn't get back to the World Series. Cleveland led the division from the start of the season to the end of the season, becoming the first team in franchise history to accomplish that feat. That's something that has not been accomplished since Cleveland did it in 1998. And that year, Kenny Lofton came back for his 2nd stint with the franchise. They would also end up drafting CC Sabathia in the draft later that year, and he would become one of the best left-handed pitchers in the history of the Cleveland franchise. And that 1998 team would make it back to the ALCS, but this time around, they fell to the New York Yankees in 6 games, ending their hopes of getting back to the World Series. 1999. The Indians won over 90 games in 1999, and they got another division title. However, it was another season without a World Series appearance or victory. They would also become the first team since 1950 to score over 1,000 runs in a regular season. 5 Indians scored at least 100 runs that season, and 4 of them recorded over 100 RBI. Unfortunately, they were just unable to carry that type of production into the postseason and would end up coming up short once again. After taking a 2-game lead over the Boston Red Sox, Cleveland lost 3 straight to be eliminated in the postseason. Guardians of the future. Cleveland would go on to have pockets of success following the 1990s, and they came just short of winning a World Series once again in 2007, and then again in 2016. Although they haven't been able to recapture the magic of Jacobs Field in the 1990s, the team of the 2010s, led by Terry Francona, has certainly come close. It's a new era of the 2020s, led by former Major League catcher Stephen Vaught, and the Guardians have plenty of new faces and veterans driving the team. Those faces have led them to one of the best records in baseball throughout the early part of the 2024 season. Can they keep it up? Will the team end one of the longest championship droughts in history? Can the glory days of the 90s return? Or are the Cleveland fans simply destined to suffer heartache once again?